Hello, welcome again to my channel. My name is Thermophylae. If you're a student in school or you're just interested about history, then this channel might be for you. Today we're going to talk about the Persian War Part 2. If you have not watched the first part, then I highly suggest you to watch the first one. Okay? So because this story is related with the first one. Now the Persian War Part 2 happens 10 years later after Persian king by the name of Darius defeated by the Athenians in the Battle of Marathons. His son continued the legacy of his father. Oh, by the way, now according to the legend, King Darius died with this rage still burning in his chest. The ambition to destroy Greeks once and for all. So according to the legend, he died with his fist clenched in anger. Now, somehow, his son, someone by the name of Xerxes, did you hear the ping? Yeah, that is from my laptop. Now, someone by the name of Xerxes, King Xerxes of Persia, known also in the Bible from the book of Esther, if you ever read that book of Esther, he's the husband of Queen Esther. And so yeah, that Persian king by the name of Xerxes is the same person with the one that written in the Bible, in the book of Esther. The account about the Persian War was written by the father of history, someone by the name of Herodotus, and he's a Greek, by the way. So the story probably it will be very biased. Very biased, like somehow trying to claim that the Greeks are the good guys and then the Persian are the bad guys. But of course, in the reality, history hates simplicity. It's not that simple. Now, moving on. According to Herodotus, King Xerxes, he sent a huge army, even bigger than his predecessors, even bigger than his father, which is King Darius, twice larger. According to Herodotus, King Xerxes, he sent a huge army trying to invade Greece. This time, again, the number is probably being exaggerated, up to 1 million troops, including the elephants, and also 800 ships. It was a huge number of troops. And of course, it requires a good skill of management because how to feed these troops, okay? How to make sure that these elephants are well fed. And then of course, according to the legend that said, wherever these troops go, the river will run dry, the lakes will run dry, and every cities, every village being passed by the troops, it will be completely gone. It will be completely destroyed. So, did the Greeks had a reason to be scared? Oh yeah, they did. Okay, they had a reason to be scared. In fact, many of these Greek city-states, they were afraid and then they surrendered to this kind of the king of kings, which is King Xerxes, simply because they don't want to be crushed under this kind of war machine that is being launched by King Xerxes against the Greeks. Only a handful of Greek city-states, they decided not to surrender, and one of them is the Athenians and also the Spartans. On the previous Persian War 1, the protagonist is of course the Athenian, right, in the Battle of Marathon. The heroic actions of Philippides and also 5,000 Athenian hoplites who valiantly defending their hometown. Now this time is the turn for the Sparta. Now, perhaps you were wondering which one is Sparta and where is Sparta? And this is Sparta. Facing this risk that they will be crushed under this Persian huge army, the Spartan, they had this kind of idea. They had this kind of very brave idea. This idea came up from their king. Yes, the Spartan led by a king. The name of the king is King Leonidas. He had an idea to stop the whole invasions of the Persia in a small tiny place by the name of Thermophylae. Thermophylae in the ancient Greek, it means the gate of fire. Somehow, some people, they prefer the translation as a gate of hell. Anyway, so let's just stick with the gate of hot spring. What is Thermophylae? Now Thermophylae is basically, it's a small narrow entrance that located between cliffs and also the sea. Now, in order for the huge army of Persians enter the land that belonged to the Greeks, they have to pass through this Thermopylae. Now, they have to walk through this kind of narrow entrance. And King Leonidas had a brilliant idea to stop the invasion right there in the Thermopylae with only 300 Spartans. Yes, only 300 Spartans. Well, of course, in the reality, actually not just like 300 of them. He was also being held by 7,000 other Greeks, okay? They came from different city-states, not Sparta. Like some of them are from Athens, some of them are from Thebes, some of them came from Corinth. So they are together helping King Leonidas and the 300 Spartans and the 300 Spartan warriors to hold off the Persian invasion. Now, one thing that you need to know about the Spartan warriors, they are not your typical ordinary Greek warriors. Okay, I made a video about it, how they were trained as a warrior since they were a boy. Probably reminds you like one of this kind of like latest movie by the Wonder Woman. Only the exception is like, you know, the boys will do the training. Well, actually the girls too also do the training in Sparta. But anyway, the one who will become the warriors are the boys. Now these 300 Spartans, they hold off their lines, standing side by side, creating some artificial wall with their huge round shield. And nothing will goes in and nothing will goes out. Now King Leonidas and also the 300 Spartan and of course the 7,000 extra talents, they successfully hold off the invasion for 3 days. For the straight 3 days, King Xerxes' army were frustrated. They cannot simply pass through the entrance because, like, you know, the 300 Spartan, they work as a cork in a wine bottle. I know that is kind of a bit weird, but yeah, because Thermophylae itself is being described that looks like a bottleneck. You know what bottleneck idea? You know the idea about bottleneck is, right? It has a narrow kind of like, you know, inlet, and then in order for you to enter is kind of like, you know, you cannot put all of your 5 fingers inside of the bottle, right? Maybe only 1 finger. Maybe some of you guys, you have a small tiny finger that you can put 2 fingers. Anyway, you get the idea. So since Thermopylae is a bottleneck, it was relatively easy for the 300 well-trained Spartan warriors to hold off the millions army of like King Xerxes. Now, they did impressive job. They hold off the line for about 3 days. Now, what happens next is, why only 3 days? Because like one of the Spartan, someone by the name of Ephialtes, he told the secret passage to go around the Thermopylae. He told the secret to King Xerxes himself. In return, Ephialtes, he want wealth, he want gold, he want respect, he want honor, he want the worldly riches, he want the worldly possession in return of his honor, in return of his loyalty to the Greeks. And then, there you go. On the 3rd day, the 300 Spartan warriors, they were surrounded by the Persian. Well, just the night before, actually, King Leonidas knew that this will happen. Well, actually, the night before, King Leonidas of Sparta knew this will happen. So, just before they got surrounded, King Leonidas sent home that 7,000 extra talents from different various kind of like city-states. And also, he sent home one of the Spartan warrior who got injured, who got wounded. Well, actually, there's also kind of like, you know, quite tragic story about that kind of like wounded warriors. This 300 men plus Leonidas, despite of heavily surrounded, they refused to surrender. King Leonidas, he did not surrender. He and his men, they stood their ground until the last man standing. Yes. They were being massacred they were being outnumbered, and then that's it. They completely wiped off. And according to the story, even though these 300 Spartans, they were wounded and many of them, they were killed, yet they still not stop fighting. If their spear broke in pieces, then they will fight with their sword. If their sword break in half, they will fight with their fists. If their hand is broken, then they will fight with their teeth. If their teeth is broken, then they will fight with their ghosts. That was like the heroic act of the 300 Spartan, try to hold off the invasions. With the death of King Leonidas of Sparta, King Xerxes, he was terrified. What might he found in the land of the Greeks? Maybe there will be another kind of like, you know, Leonidas. Maybe there will be another kind of like resistance. So what could he do is like, you know, he ordered his men to chop the body of King Leonidas in pieces. Okay. It's a terrible act, by the way, because he did not honor the dead body of like, you know, King Leonidas. Instead of like give him like proper burial. And after that, he sent each of these pieces to the Greek city-states with the hope that all of these Greek city-states, they will like what? They will lay down their arms and then surrender instead of like, fight against him. And guess what? He was wrong. All of these Greek city-states, instead of like afraid, they were angry and they were unified now. Now, of course, nothing can stop the Persian at this moment from the land. Even the city of Athens was completely destroyed. The temple of Athena was destroyed, including the sacred olive grove that is to believe that somehow were being given directly by the goddess Athena, was completely destroyed by the Persian. But however, fortunately, most of the Athenian citizens, they escaped already the days before with their ships. One of the most important battles that became the turning point for the Greeks were the Battle of Salamis. Yeah. Now the Battle of Salamis is basically a sea battle, ships versus ships. Did I mention about like the 800 ships of the Persian? Yes, Persian have like 800 ships. That's a huge number of navy. Now, one of the Athenians, someone by the name of Themistocles. Now Themistocles, he had an idea to stop this kind of like Persian invasions by also building formidable ships. Maybe not as big as the Persian ships, but faster and more agile. Now, the name of the design of the ships is known as the Trireme. Now, I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, but I'm going to show you the pictures anyway. There you go, boom, Trireme. See? Now, the function of this kind of like the horn on the tip of this kind of like boat or the ship to ram the hull of the ships. So hopefully, like the enemy's ship will sink. It's kind of like violent battle that might happen on the sea, but yeah, something like that. Now in the Battle of Salamis, the Persian navy were defeated by the Athenians, simply because like the Athenians, they know their territory better than the Persians. The water is just too shallow for a big heavy ships of the Persians, which is that results that most of the Persian ships were kind of like stuck. And then now with that battle, somehow, there's this kind of like tiny details. Now, just before the battle, King Xerxes, he was so confident that he will win the war, he will win the war. He ordered his men to build a throne in one of the hill in the island, overlook over the Strait of Salamis, hoping that it's going to be kind of like epic watch, and it's going to become like an epic movie. Saw like how his 800 ships crushing over crushing over like the puny, pathetic kind of like Athenian trireme. Guess what? Yeah, he was defeated, and then that's it. He lost his appetite to continue the war. He did not speak anything. He went back home to Persia, and then he left his men, he left his troops, he left his generals to continue the war. One thing that you need to know, okay, when the king or the general left the battlefield, it's difficult for you to win the battle. Okay, it's difficult for them to win the battle because like their leader is not there. So what's the point of like fighting hard if your leader is not paying attention? Guess what? After the Battle of Salamis, the Persians start to losing battle after battle after battle. Like they keep losing. Meanwhile, the Athenians, the Sparta, and also the rest of the Greek city-states, they become victorious. Now, one of the last battle happens in the Battle of Plataea. The word Plataea, it means basically a plate. Yeah, because basically it happens in a place that looks like a plate. It's just like flat, Plataea. With the results of that battle, the Persian, they returned and they never come back to Greece. Now, somehow the Athenians the Athenians and also the Greeks, they comes up as victorious. They form an allegiance. They form an allegiance known as the Justice League. Wait, sorry, not Justice League. They form an allegiance known as the Delian League. The purpose of Justice League, the purpose of Delian League is to prevent another invasions of Persia. So whenever like the Persian invade Greece one more time, they will be far more ready. If you're a big fan of like Avengers, yeah, the idea is the same. To prevent another kind of like alien invasion, Persian invasions. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. God bless you guys all. Bye-bye.